250 years ago this coming July, leaders of the 13 colonies in America came together in Philadelphia to write down all the reasons that the British king had lost their loyalty. Everything from taxation without representation to soldiers invading their cities and killing with impunity. The U.S. Declaration of Independence was built around a series of complaints, around grievances, but also big ideas. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. We tend to remember the first sentence more, but the second is the bedrock principle. Governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. It doesn't mean that we consent, we agree to every law, every tax, every bit of spending. But we have to agree overall that the bargain is worth it. That's where governments get their legitimacy. Was that a good idea to demand that? Yes, I think it was a pretty good idea. Now, it took a long time for America to get around to extending those promised rights to all men and all women of all races, and maybe we could still do better. But the core ideal was sound. It was something that Lincoln and King and others could build on. Now, when the Revolutionary War ended, the Founding Fathers were concerned about not forming a new government that would be just as bad as the old one. It took them a few years, but they came back, many of the same people, to Philadelphia to write another, more binding document. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare, to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And a key phrase there is a more perfect union. Not perfect, not expecting perfection, but more perfect with the opportunity to become more perfect over time. Was that a good idea? Yeah, I think it was a pretty good idea, recognizing that the government would not be perfect, that it would need to change and evolve to become more perfect over time. I speak in defense of these words and ideals at a time when commitment to democracy is in doubt. For most of the last century, the world has been moving in fits and starts, but moving in a direction of more democracy and more freedom in more places. Except that recently, there has been a pattern of democratic backsliding. Whether left wing or right wing, dictators come through power, sometimes in military coups, but just as often through elections. They win popular support by promising to eliminate corruption and solve problems. And what do? They do the opposite. Instead of rights for all, the pursuit of happiness for all, they appeal to our divisions. They appeal to our prejudices. They make their countries smaller and meaner. Now, the historian Ruth Ben-Ghiat, who has studied the rise of autocracy, insists that it's not just people casually throwing away their right to vote, throwing away their democracy when they vote for these people. It's just that they're expecting what democracy is supposed to be about. It ought to be moving us in the direction of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And when it feels like it's just a sham, then they can make bad decisions, like voting for someone who'll wind up taking away their right to vote. That's why dysfunctional democracy is so dangerous. In our own country, we're so gridlocked that trying to pass a sensible constitutional amendment is unimaginable. Any kind of reasonable reform seems to be unimaginable. Just passing a routine budget resolution, spending resolution, agreeing to pay the bills that have already been committed to, that's a recurring crisis. Now, you can't have democracy without politics, and politics means disagreement. But there are better and worse kinds of politics. Consider how it ought to work. First, we elect smart, honest, competent people. Are you with me so far? Our smart, honest, competent representatives are going to disagree, but they work in a spirit of give and take. They build on each other's ideas to find the best possible solutions for our country. Now, is that too much to ask? Yeah, okay, all right. It probably is too much to ask. But could we come a little bit closer? I think we could. The next time I vote for president, the next time I vote for a congressperson or a senator, I would like to be torn. I would like to be saying, I don't know how I'm going to decide between these two smart, honest, competent people. Whichever one wins, it'll be great. I hate to see either of them lose. These are just such smart, honest, competent people. Now, maybe out there somebody is laughing out loud, but I think you probably think that what I just said is ridiculous. But should it be? Now, maybe there are structural changes to make, campaign finance reform, things like that. But I think a more fundamental challenge is recommitting to the idea that better things are possible. Recommitting to the idea of honest public service. Because if we want people to step forward to be honest public servants, we have to believe in that a little bit. I'm not asking you to ignore what's wrong with their politics, but don't give up. Don't be so cynically convinced that all politicians are corrupt that you fail to recognize and support and encourage and bring forward the smart, honest, competent people who could represent us. Now, the Declaration of Independence ends with the signatories saying, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. They were encouraging each other to be brave because they were taking a big chance. They were rebelling against the mother country. They could have been hanged for treason. As Ben Franklin said, we must all hang together or we will surely hang separately. They risked their lives for the cause of freedom. In this 250th anniversary year, I'm asking you to just do your part in support of that cause of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Your country needs you.